Hello, investors. It is Connor Bates, Associate Portfolio Manager at Revere Asset Management. Today is Sunday, November 3rd, 4:48 p.m. Eastern Time. Coming to you with the Revere Roundup Weekend Walkthrough. Going to go over what I'm looking for the week ahead and some key events, earnings to keep an eye out on. So we'll start with the trend gauge as usual. And you can see we downgraded market leaders to neutral. It's a combination of factors, some breaking key moving averages, and just overall, for the first time since we kind of were in this rally, we're seeing a little bit of distribution in the tape. Short term, we have the red arrow for the 21 EMA, and it's really as simple as the easiest long trading environments are when the indexes are trending above the 21 EMA. So we're a little bit more cautious there. Medium term trend, green arrow above the 50-day, although RSP is lagging. And then long term, the big picture 200-day moving average, the green arrow is still there as well. So I'll get into some charts, some things to keep an eye out for the week. So we'll start with just an index review. So here's the S&P 500. And basically, we had that sharp 2-day sell-off last week, and we found support right at the 50-day, and on Friday we put an inside day in that wide range bearish engulfing candle. So keep an eye out there. 56.69. This is obviously a key level here. That's kind of this previous breakout spot from this base. And then one thing to know is, we are kind of breaking this uptrend line here. We did on Thursday and followed through on Friday. So just keeping an open mind here. It's a busy week with earnings. The election's Tuesday, FOMC's Wednesday or Thursday, sorry. So a lot going on this week. So just be prepared. But look at the weekly, sitting right at that 10-week. So we did close above that on the week, which is a good sign. But we'll have to see. Basically, if we break Thursday's low, that would be a big red flag, and that would coincide with the 50-day. So that would definitely be risk off. RSP, equal weight, more relative weakness, and closing below the 50-day. Would like to see this get back above the 50-day and, kind of have this downtrend line right here. But, just objectively looking at this, not the worst look, but not the best look, right? So maybe this needs to reclaim it, chop around a little bit more, and maybe it needs more time. Weekly still looks pretty good in a nice uptrend here. Let's look at the Qs. Again, similar look, tight inside day on Friday, sitting right at the 50-day. Don't want to see this break Thursday's low along with the 50-day. So we'll see, and you can kind of see too, this did kind of break an upward trend line as well. So kind of just wait and see mode right now, see if the indexes can rewrite themselves and, get back above here. Mag 7, kind of retesting, top of the space breakout spot. Amazon had decent earnings last week, but kind of a mixed bag in the sector in that group right now. Dow Jones sitting right at the 50-day as well, must hold spot. Mid caps at the 50-day as well, and it's kind of the common theme right now. A lot of the indexes are right at that moving average. So, a couple things could play out. They could undercut Thursday's low and the 50-day reclaim it, or the market could see some more problems if we start seeing some volume to the downside there. Russell 2000, still, this was looking like a big VCP, and it still hasn't completely violated it yet, really, but a clear violation would be a strong break below this 2200 spot with volume. And then I think, that would definitely be signaling more risk off. The weekly, zooming out a little bit, looks, less noise, looks more constructive. If we do pull back, 2135 is a big spot, and that coincides with the 21-week moving average as well. The VIX, this is something that you're going to want to watch this week. Like I mentioned, election on Tuesday. Historically, the VIX does rally into that, and it's above 20. So that's another sign the market's giving us is maybe a little bit more risk off. Anytime it's above 20, you're just going to see more wild swings intraday. And that's the rule 16. That's how you can get a rough estimate for the daily range of the S&P 500 on that given day. But Just a lot more volatility. I tend to see more failed breakouts, especially in the morning. That's something I've noticed is when there's more volatility, you get just some of these more head fakes in the morning. So sometimes I tend to wait 30 minutes before making a trade on a day. That's something I found that can be helpful when the market's more volatile. But would like to see this come back below 20. And then one thing to always know is when the VIX starts to get extended, it usually needs a reason to stay bid up. And if fear's leaving the market, then that's when you can get a good risk reward as the VIX has room to cool off. The dollar, this is another thing affecting equities, forming a bull flag here after that big move up. And finally, the market's starting to it was just kind of ignoring this huge move up for a while, and now we may start to see this put a drag on equities. Gold breaking the 8 EMA, but this has been in a really nice trend here. So we'll see if pullbacks continue to get supported. If they don't, that'd definitely be a character change in trend. Gold stocks, relative weakness. I mentioned this 40 level. This, could just be not a great look. So we'll see. Maybe this spills over into gold as well. Silver coming back into this base high, probably must hold spot here. Bitcoin looks pretty good. Um, a lot of people are talking about how this is a Trump trade, whatever you want. It could be, you never know, but we're just going to follow price and volume. And everyone was looking for a breakout here, but maybe it was a case that shot right up into that resistance too quick. So now it's coming back in, and I think this looks very constructive. And if it handles out here, that would be good. It's one of the better looking areas of the market that I'm seeing right now. Bonds getting smoked, clear break of the 200-day moving average. TLT as well continues lower. Druckenmiller's got a big short on bonds. He's been very public about it. Rates, again, just kind of look similar to the dollar, forming bull flags here after these big moves up, and you can see. So that's some interesting correlation. I wanted to touch on some breadth. So here we have the NASDAQ composite with the percent of stocks above moving averages. And one thing I've noticed is a bit of a divergence taking place. So we have been rallying up here, but participation has kind of been coming down. Only 46% of NASDAQ stocks are above the 50-day, 43% above the 200-day, and then 42% above the 20-day. So kind of a mixed bag here. But one thing to know is if the market does pull back, these are pretty neutral. So if we do rally, there's room up here. And then the S&P has actually been worse. So percent of stocks above the 20-day, only 35%. And this is testing August 5th lows. And you can see what happened here. Percent of stocks above the 50-day, only about half. And then still positive readings above the 200-day. So like I said, two scenarios. There's a lot of weakness under the hood, and this is signaling that maybe the market wants to pull back further, or it's saying that, we pulled back from 58.78 down to 57.28. We've seen a lot of stocks cool off. So now if the market does find support at the 50-day, there's quite some room for these to get back up. And in this rally, we haven't seen them get overly extended. So that's that. NASDAQ McClellan oscillator just below the zero line. Just again, weakness in small caps, showing lack of breath here. And we'll see if this hooks back above zero. I would imagine that coincides with a lot of stocks moving higher, breakouts working. But for now, this is just kind of saying maybe take a pause on breakout buying. And then let's see, next one, NASI, one of my favorites. And this again, our size almost into oversold. So this never hooked up or got into gear when we just had this decent tradable rally. And this is back below 30. So what you'd want to look out for here is this to start to curl back up, and that could be a good spot. And this has just really done nothing for a while. It was looking like this kind of setting up a VCP, and right here it looked like it wanted to go. And my thought process was that was going to coincide with expanding breadth, but this is coming back down. But on the positive note, the RSI is already oversold. So if the market pulls in more, and we could see a quick flush on the election, give or take, that would maybe make a good low for this to hook back up. And another thing to note is more times than not, I get a little bit cautious when this starts getting super overbought, and there's always more room down if the market tops out around here and comes back in. But on this rally, this never got overbought. So breadth is across multiple metrics has just kind of been in no man's land for a couple weeks now. This and then net new highs, new lows. I like to look at this. This is starting to show negative readings, so something to be aware of. And sometimes when you start to see that, you can see, you know, you can use this combination of things. Sometimes when you see these huge net low readings, that could mean a bottom, and that was August 5th. But now we're just starting to see less new highs into the market and more new lows. Similar story here, just with the S&P chart, you can see into the negative territory. And then this one, I like this indicator. It's the NASDAQ percent of stocks above the 5-day moving average. You can almost call this the fear FOMO indicator. And this is back into the fear zone. It bounced off 22 and now it closed 30. But if you watch the videos before, I mentioned, I'm not price and volume and leadership is always trumps everything. But when you start to see this up here, that could be a sign that, hey, maybe you want to look at trimming into strength, managing positions. And then when you get down here, you could be looking for a variety of things. If stocks that's been extended, it's pulling back to a moving average, or and just looking for that leadership, because you see these have came down. So what stocks are bucking the trend? So keeping an eye on that as well. NAM exposure, nothing here. Never gotten super overbought. Anything over 95 to 100, I get a little bit cautious. And you can see the chart of the S&P 500 overlay. Almost every time this gets a reading above 100, the market pulled back. Whether in the timeline on that, there was always a lag. It could be a couple days, a week, or it could be, 2, 3 days. But this never got that extended. It hit 90 October 9th, but now it's at 82. So what you would expect when the market's in an uptrend. So yeah, that's that. That's some breadth. And we'll get into the charts. So I'll start with some sectors that I am watching. XBI, this is the first one. I really liked how this held up on Friday. It was up almost 2.5%, while just outperforming most of the sectors that I follow. This has got a pretty big declining tops trend line here that is starting to break. Big picture, I think 103 is the big spot that fuels this move. And you can see it. I think this weekly looks fantastic. It's flagging right on the 10-week moving average here. And then one thing, stacking the weight of the evidence in your favor. VKTX actually has data today, so I haven't seen it out yet, but that could provide some fire into the sector. We had MDGL last week, just monster move here on earnings, relative strength line, new highs out of a big base. That's good. ARGX is another one. It's another biotech breaking out of this kind of nice little base. So good action there. And then another thing is third week in January 2025, there's a biotech JPM Healthcare Conference. So that's another potential catalyst to look out for that could support biotech moving higher. But this looks good. Oh, and then one last thing is seasonality wise, historically, November is one of the strongest months for biotech. So definitely a few factors that are pointing towards a bullish month for biotech. We'll have to see. Let's take a look at, I already covered Bitcoin. I like that. I wanted to show WGMI. This is the Bitcoin miners, and they've been very strong. And still, after huge move, 17, almost 25, pulling back to the 21 day. So maybe this kind of handles out more, but I still like the look of Bitcoin. A lot of the miners have acted well, specifically MSTR and some other ones. Cores is another one that's acted well. So still watching this sector. Likely is going to be volatile this week with the election. So that's one thing to note as well. I wanted to mention KWeb China. It's actually holding in not bad. Obviously, everyone knew this massive run up, got a little bit ahead of itself, and now it's pulling back and starting to form a tight range. So we'll see if this can bounce. There's a variety of ways that you could play this. Let's see. This is the levered ETF that tracks it. And then you have names, JD, this is similar look. getting in a tight little pennant here after that move up. So yeah, seeing if this sector can bounce, and I'm sure they'll have more news in the coming weeks to months about the stimulus packages that they've mentioned. IGV software names definitely stood out to me again this weekend. I highlighted this big base that it's been coming out of, and this looks good. Kind of after this breakout here, it's forming another little box pattern here. So I like the look of this sector. The stocks are acting well. Weekly looks good. This is a big weekly kind of cup and handle base, whatever you want to call it. And then some weakness. Show the other side. Semiconductors, harsh break below the 200-day on volume and a tight inside day on Friday. So if this takes out these day lows, that would not be a good look for the sector. And then it's definitely a mixed bag in this sector right now. You have NVIDIA. This looks pretty good. It's, doing really nothing wrong. Moved from 100 to 140. So now it's handling out. You have A-Lab. This is very nice looking chart here. Had ants pop up. ARM. This one looks okay, sitting at the 50-day TSM. One of the better looking ones, pulling back to this kind of base high, and it held. And then you have ABGO as well, sitting right at the 50-day. So starting to show a little relative weakness. You can see this RS line, but nevertheless, you just got to see how these leaders act, because then you look at AMD, looks really bad. AMAT, KLAC, ASML, all these ones, they don't look great. So we'll just have to see. I think just need to see more evidence in price to get a better gauge for the sector. And some more weakness, XLRE, real estate, losing the 50-day moving average. And, since the top here, look at this relative strength line. Absolutely no RS for the last couple of weeks. And I actually should have paid more attention to this real time. But yeah, put in a higher low here after this one, and now it's breaking lower. And a lot of the stocks I was following in the real estate sector are starting to fall apart. Zillow, I mean, not really falling apart, but just lack of strength, on the verge of losing the 50-day. And then we have ITB. This is home builders. So I think another part of this is rates moving higher. This is a very rate sensitive sector, but it is rolling over a relative strength line weekly. This was one of the strongest sectors off the lows. You can see it actually bottomed in 2022, and this has seen a huge move from 50 to almost 140. And then PHM was a big driver for that. They kind of bombed on earnings, but other leaders in the group, Toll Brothers, KBH, all kind of have similar patterns, bear flag breakdowns. But if rates start to pull back again, then maybe these shoot right back up. So, but just wanted to highlight minor relative weakness there for sectors. So yeah, that's sectors. We'll get into my watch list for the week. Just before I get into this, I just want to preface is that there's a lot of events this week. It's probably my third time mentioning it, but the election is on Tuesday. So when there's a lot of stuff going on, sometimes no trade is the best trade. But with that said, I'll get into some charts. So Dell, this one looks good. It had volume. With the auditors leaving SMCI, this kind of benefits Dell. And this one had volume too, and then it followed back on Friday. But this is a pretty just clean and simple base that it's trying to break out from. I like the volume patterns here, and this one looks good. Maybe it wants to lead once again. Was a harsh pullback, but you can see back here, this went on a pretty epic run. Marvell, this is one of the better looking semiconductors as well, trying to break out of this big base here. Take a look at the weekly. This looks great. And then I really like to see this. I like to see that relative strength line new high, and that's confirming as well. Sweet greens, this one is getting tight on the right side. Food group, retail restaurants, still the action there in this group has been strong, and this one looks good. We can take a look at the weekly. Weekly looks really good, so maybe this one breaks out. Twilio, I wanted to highlight some of these earning gaps because they were pretty impressive, and kind of the theme of earnings season is the big tech stocks haven't really been getting bought, but we've seen some big gaps in some of these older growth stocks. And looking at the weekly here, this is a huge stage one base breakout on volume. So this is definitely one I'm just tracking in the weeks ahead. And with these, I just always put them on a watch list and I monitor them for setups, because if this is truly going to make a move, this is literally just the start. You can see it was traded at $500 in 2021, and it's all the way back down. But price definitely is kind of showing that this thing might be starting to bottom out. A-Lab, they report earnings tomorrow. See how this one acts. But one theme we have been seeing is IPOs have been super strong on earnings. ARM earlier this year, Reddit last week. So we'll see what A-Lab has in store. Toast. I highlighted these payment processor, fintech type names on the podcast Friday, but this one looks good. This is another big stage one breakout that I really like. And so just continue to watch this one. Definitely showing leadership. Look at this relative strength line. Square, this reports this week. I'm going to be watching this one. Fits the fintech theme, and this has big stage one base. So if this, gaps out of this base on volume, I definitely would be looking to buy that gap. Upstart, pulling back to the 21 day. 49.62 is kind of a big spot. So what I'd be looking for here is, it's undercutting that level. And if it reclaims, that would be pretty bullish. And again, I like the story on a lot of these fintech stocks. Similar weekly chart starting to make the turn. Affirm, another fintech stock pulling back to the 50-day. They have earnings this week. Again, this is another one. Their last earnings report had a really strong gap, but pretty volatile action. Undercut it and then ripped back up and then came back down. So maybe this next earnings report kind of gets this going in a more smoother trend, but the weekly chart looks really good. SoFi, another fintech stock as well, kind of flagging here at highs. Show the weekly chart starting to make the turn. DocuSign, this showed relative strength breaking out of this flag here. And this is, again, I showed IGV, but a lot of these software stocks popped up on my scans this weekend and looked good. GLW, they gapped up on earnings, pulled back into the top of the base here. We'll see if this can U-turn back up. Instacart, we own this, another IPO that's been acting good and, maybe extended from this low here, but just starting to get out, clear all the supply from on the left side of the chart here from the IPO. And this is trying to break out of this flag pattern here. Looks good. C Limited, this one reports in about 2 weeks, but this has been super strong off the lows. And now it's that 50 days catching up. So this could be an opportunity on a pullback. And this had 3 weeks tight the other week. And now it's negating that, but pulling back to the 10-week moving average. Palantir, another earnings to watch. That 50-day starting to catch up, and this one's just been quite extended. So we'll have to see how this reacts on earnings. PANW, some of these cybersecurity stocks still look pretty good. This is one of the leaders in that space. This is kind of forming a flag pattern here right under these 380 highs. CCJ fits this alternative energy theme, kind of putting in handling out here in this cut base. So we'll see if this starts to U-turn back up. Netflix, probably one of the best big tech stocks that I'm seeing right now. This is forming a flag here after that earnings gap higher. Let's take a look at Tesla. This one's been a tricky one and put in a day two higher high volume. It was like a stampede of volume. A lot of people were piling in, but now this is pulling back and still looks constructive. Big picture, 265, 271. That's the big level that I think fuels this to really start going higher, but it is starting to offer a pretty good risk to reward if you didn't buy that gap. So a couple of things to watch out. If it undercuts this gap low and then reclaims, that could be an opportunity, or that 21 days catching up. So maybe it just taps and goes. And you can look this weekly. You can see the significance of, this 270 level here. So I think that's the big picture level that this one needs to break. Let's see. Roblox. This is another big old 2020 growth stock that had a strong earnings gap, put in a tight inside day following, and you can look at this weekly. Very similar look to Twilio. So I'd just keep an eye on these moving forward. Kava, pull back to the 50-day, see if it bounces. VRT, again, losing the 21-day, but if this pulls back to 100, I'd really like to see that hold. But again, just highlighting some names pulling back could offer an opportunity. APP, again, this reports earnings in 3 days, so we'll see what this one has to say, but starting to pull back a little bit, maybe forms a new base. Reddit, monster earnings gap, day two higher high, pulled back. So what I'd be watching for this one is to reclaim that high volume close. That'd be pretty key, but I think this one still should just be a major focus given the earnings, the volume, the IPO base, the under-owned institutions. It kind of had all the everything you want to see for an earnings gap. And then lastly, MSTR. This one's starting to pull back. You got the 21-day catching up to price, and this one just got pretty extended. You can see kind of hit that pivot profit taking zone, but now pulling back. And obviously, Bitcoin, you got to watch Bitcoin as well because this trade's pretty in line. But given the earnings, pretty decent reaction there, given how extended it was. It wasn't a complete sell the news, but this one's still good. This is clearly the horse in the crypto space and the big liquid institutional high ADR stock. So those are some stocks that I'm watching for the week ahead. Let's take a look at the earnings calendar. So November 5th is obviously the election. Wednesday, PMI. Thursday, jobless claims, FOMC as well on Thursday. That should be a big one. And then consumer sentiment on Friday. Tons of earnings this week again. I mean, I'm not going to talk through all these, but quite a few that are worth watching. So if you want to pause this and check it out, but so always know your earnings dates and any stocks in the same sector, they could get moved. So that is everything for the week ahead. I hope you guys enjoyed and are ready for the trading week to start. Always appreciate you guys watching. If you're ever interested in becoming a client, you can always reach out. My email is connor@revereasset.com. And that is that. So thanks for listening. If you enjoyed, give it a like, comment, and good luck this week.